The sun was setting over Ridgemont Military Academy when the first alarm went off. Commander Marcus Hayes was sitting in his office reading a report about the exchange program when he heard the sirens. He stood up quickly and walked to the window. The sky was turning red and orange, but there was something else. A bright light was coming down from the clouds. It was a shuttle, and it was landing on the Academy's main platform. Marcus knew what was coming. 3 months ago, the human leaders and the Krell Dominion had made a peace agreement. It was not a real friendship, but it was better than war. Now, to show that they wanted peace, both sides were sending warriors to each other's military schools. Marcus was going to meet the first Krell warrior ever to visit a human academy. He left his office and walked down the long corridors of the academy. Other people were moving quickly through the halls. Some looked scared. Others looked curious. Marcus could understand both feelings. The Krell were known as the best fighters in the galaxy. They had won almost every battle they had ever fought. Now one of them was going to live here for 6 months. When Marcus reached the main platform, Captain Lisa Morrison was already there. She was standing with a group of other officers. They were all wearing their best uniforms and standing very straight. Behind them, hundreds of cadets were lined up to watch. These were young men and women who wanted to become soldiers. They had trained hard to be here, and now they were about to see something that had never happened before. The shuttle door opened slowly. The air was hot and smelled like metal and burned fuel. Then the first foot came out. It was not a normal foot. It had 4 toes that bent in strange ways. The leg that followed was long and very muscular. Then came the body. The Krell warrior was huge. He was almost 8 feet tall. His skin was not pink like human skin. It was dark and smooth like polished stone. It had colors that moved under the surface like purple and blue waves. He had 4 arms, not 2 like humans. Each arm looked as strong as a human's entire body. His face was different too. He had more eyes than humans, and they all seemed to be looking at different things at the same time. His name was Vexthor, and he was a true warrior from the Krell Dominion. Captain Morrison stepped forward and put out her hand. This was how humans said hello. Vexthor looked at her hand for a moment. Then he put one of his 4 hands into hers. His grip was very strong, but he was careful not to hurt her. Marcus could see that Vexthor understood human customs. "Welcome to Ridgemont Military Academy," Captain Morrison said. Her voice was steady and professional. "We are happy to have you here." Vexthor made a sound that was like talking, but not quite. His voice was deeper than any human voice. It had strange tones and notes that human ears were not used to hearing. But he had studied human language, and after a moment he spoke in English. "I am pleased to be here," Vexthor said. "I have come to learn about human warfare and human soldiers." A young cadet named Kevin Porter was standing in the front row. He was tall and strong, and he had done better than almost everyone else in his classes. He watched Vexthor with interest. Kevin had always wanted to understand how other species fought. He had read every book about the Krell that he could find. Now he was going to have the chance to learn directly from one of them. Next to Kevin stood Rachel Sullivan. She was one of the smartest cadets in the academy. She had perfect marks in every class, and she could think through problems faster than almost anyone. Rachel was looking at Vexthor with curiosity, not fear like some of the other cadets. She wanted to understand how his mind worked. General Robert Pierce was the head of the academy. He came out to greet Vexthor in the formal way. The 2 of them shook hands, and Pierce welcomed him to the academy. Then Vexthor was taken to the place where he would stay during his time here. The room had been made large to fit his size. The bed was twice as big as a normal human bed. The doors were wider. The chairs were stronger. They had spent weeks preparing for his arrival. Now everything was ready. That night, Marcus sat in his office again. He was thinking about what would happen in the coming months. Would the cadets respect Vexthor? Would Vexthor teach them something useful? Or would there be problems and arguments? Marcus knew that mixing humans and Krell could be dangerous, but it could also be wonderful if everything went right. The next morning, Vexthor joined the cadets for the morning exercises. He stood in line with them as they did running and jumping and strength training. What everyone noticed was that Vexthor did not just participate. He did everything better than everyone else. He ran faster. He jumped higher. He was stronger than any human there. But something else happened too. Vexthor watched how the humans moved. He paid attention to how they breathed, and how they used their smaller bodies to do things that were clever and fast. He did not make fun of them for being weaker. Instead, he seemed to be thinking about what he was seeing. During the combat training session, the instructors decided to have Vexthor work with the cadets in exercises. Kevin was chosen to be his partner for the first session. Kevin was nervous but also excited. He had trained in hand-to-hand combat his whole life. Now he was going to practice with an alien warrior. When they started, Kevin moved fast and tried to use his training. But Vexthor was faster. Vexthor blocked every move. Kevin could not touch him. It was like trying to fight someone who knew exactly what he was going to do before he did it. In just a few minutes, Kevin was on the ground and Vexthor was standing over him. But Vexthor did not look mean or angry. He looked interested. He put out one of his 4 hands to help Kevin up. "You are fast," Vexthor said. "For a human, your reactions are good. But you are thinking too much. Your body should know what to do without your mind telling it." Kevin stood up, breathing hard. What Vexthor had said made sense. Kevin had always thought about every move before he made it. Maybe he needed to change his approach. "Will you teach me?" Kevin asked. "Yes," Vexthor said simply. "I will teach." As the day went on, more cadets began to see that Vexthor was not here to hurt them or to prove that the Krell were better. He seemed to actually want to help them. He spent time with different cadets watching them fight, giving them advice and showing them better ways to move and think about combat. By the time the day ended, something had changed in the academy. The fear was not completely gone, but it was smaller now. Curiosity had started to grow. The cadets wanted to know more about this strange warrior who had come from across the stars. Marcus watched everything from his office. He knew that something important was starting to happen. This was either going to be the best or the worst 6 months in the Academy's history. There was no middle ground now. Vexthor was here and everything had changed. The first week of Vexthor's stay at the Academy brought changes that nobody expected. Everyone thought that having an alien warrior there would be strange and uncomfortable. But what actually happened was different. The cadets started to see that Vexthor was not just a visitor. He was a teacher who could show them things they had never learned before. On Monday morning, Vexthor was taken to the main training ground. This was a large open area where the cadets practiced their fighting skills. There were obstacle courses with walls to climb and ropes to swing from. There were areas for running and jumping. There were places where cadets practiced with weapons. Everything had been designed to make soldiers strong and fast. General Pierce thought it would be good to see how Vexthor would handle the human training equipment. He told the instructors to let Vexthor try the obstacle course. All the cadets stopped what they were doing to watch. They wanted to see if the obstacle course would be hard for him. Vexthor started the course. The first obstacle was a wall that was 10 feet high. Human cadets had to use ropes and climbing skills to get over it. Vexthor walked up to the wall and simply climbed it with his 4 hands. He reached the top in seconds. Then he went down the other side just as fast. The next obstacle was a series of heavy boxes that had to be moved from one place to another. Each box weighed as much as a full-grown human. Cadets had to push them a distance of 50 feet. Vexthor picked up 2 boxes with his 4 hands and carried them to the end in about 10 seconds. As Vexthor went through the entire course, it became clear that it was far too easy for him. He finished the whole thing in less than 5 minutes. The fastest human cadet had taken 20 minutes. Some of the cadets started to feel discouraged. It seemed impossible to ever be as good as an alien warrior. But Kevin Porter saw something different. Kevin was watching very carefully, and he noticed that Vexthor was not just racing through the course. Vexthor was studying how each part worked. He was looking at the angles of the walls and the placement of the ropes. He was paying attention to every detail. After Vexthor finished, Kevin walked over to him. "That was incredible," Kevin said. "But I have a question. If you can do it so much faster than us, why do you need to practice at all?" Vexthor turned his 4 eyes toward Kevin. "I am learning," he said simply. "I want to know why humans design obstacles this way. What does it teach you? What makes your soldiers strong?" This was an interesting question. Kevin had never really thought about why the obstacles were the way they were. He had just done them because that was what soldiers were supposed to do. "I think it teaches us to be creative," Kevin said slowly. "Each person finds their own way through. We learn to solve problems." Vexthor made a strange sound that might have been approval. "This is different from how we train Krell warriors," he said. "We are taught the correct way. There is only one way to do something. Everyone learns the same. Your way is interesting. Over the next few days, Vexthor attended every class and training session. He watched the cadets practice strategy games where they had to think about how to win a battle. He watched them learn about weapons and tactics. He watched them study history to understand what had worked in past wars. But Vexthor also started to ask questions that made the instructors think differently. In a history class where they were studying human wars, an instructor named David Long was explaining how an army had won a battle by using a clever trick. They had pretended to attack from one direction while actually attacking from another direction. Why is trickery important? Vexthor asked. Would not the best army win anyway? David Long paused. Well, sometimes the smaller army uses tricks to defeat the larger army, he explained. Interesting, Vexthor said. In Krell training, we are taught that the bigger force will always win. We learn to be the biggest force. We do not learn to be smaller and use tricks. Rachel Sullivan was sitting in the back of the class. She began to understand something. Humans and Krell thought about fighting in very different ways. Humans often had to be clever because they were smaller and weaker. Krell did not have to be clever because they were bigger and stronger. After class, Rachel approached Vexthor. Would you like to see how we think about strategy? She asked. I mean, really see it? Vexthor agreed. Rachel took him to the Academy's library and showed him all the books about human military history. She showed him videos of famous human battles. She explained how humans had won wars against stronger enemies by being smart and creative. Vexthor spent hours looking through all this information. His 4 eyes moved quickly across the pages. He watched the videos over and over again. Rachel could see that he was trying to understand something completely new. Your people are weak, Vexthor said to Rachel one day. This sounded like an insult, but Rachel could tell it was not meant that way. Vexthor was just stating a fact. Your bodies are fragile. Your lives are short compared to ours, yet you have survived. This is unusual. We survive because we adapt, Rachel said. We change based on what happens around us. We try new things. Sometimes we fail, but we learn from failing. Vexthor was quiet for a long moment. The Krell do not fail, he said. We are trained to be perfect. If we fail, we are punished or removed from the program. That sounds hard, Rachel said. It is the Krell way, Vexthor replied. But Rachel could tell he was thinking about something. By the end of the first week, something unexpected had started to happen in the academy. The cadets were not afraid of Vexthor anymore. Instead, they wanted to learn from him. Kevin organized a group of top cadets to meet with Vexthor every evening to discuss combat and strategy. Vexthor agreed to teach them, but he said he wanted to learn from them too. During these evening sessions, Kevin would show Vexthor how humans thought about problems. Rachel would explain the reasons why humans made the choices they made. Other cadets would share their own experiences and what they had learned. Vexthor asked many questions. He seemed genuinely interested in understanding how human minds worked. He told them about Krell training methods. He explained how Krell warriors were taught to be exact and perfect. He also admitted that sometimes this made it hard to deal with unexpected situations. Marcus Hayes watched all of this from a distance. He could see that the academy was changing. The cadets were learning from Vexthor, yes, but something more important was happening. The cadets were beginning to understand that there were many ways to be a good soldier. Being strong was important. Being smart was important. But being creative and flexible was also important. By Friday of that first week, Vexthor was eating meals with the cadets in the dining hall. He was sitting with Kevin and Rachel and other students. He was asking them questions about human life and human culture. He was listening to their stories. Several older cadets still did not trust Vexthor. They thought he was here to spy on human military secrets. They thought this was all a trick by the Krell Dominion to learn how to defeat humans. But even some of these skeptical cadets were starting to wonder if maybe they were wrong. General Pierce called Marcus into his office at the end of the week. This is going better than I expected, Pierce said. I was worried about problems. But instead, the cadets are learning things they never would have learned otherwise. Marcus nodded. Vexthor seems genuinely interested in understanding us, he said. And the cadets seem interested in learning from him. Yes, Pierce agreed. But I want you to stay alert. We still do not know if we can fully trust him. Watch everything. Report anything that seems wrong. Marcus said he would. But as he left the general's office, he was thinking about what he had seen that week. Vexthor did not act like a spy. He acted like someone who was really trying to understand something new. Whether that was good or bad, Marcus was not yet sure. But one thing was certain. The next 5.5 months at Ridgemont Military Academy were going to be very interesting. 2 weeks had passed since Vexthor arrived at the academy. The initial suspicion and fear had mostly gone away. Now the cadets saw him as something between a teacher and a mystery. He was still learning about humans. But humans were also learning about him. The exchange was becoming real and meaningful. Kevin Porter was in the middle of a strategy class when Vexthor entered the room. Today they were studying a famous human battle from 200 years ago. In this battle, a small human army had defeated a much larger force by using the land to their advantage and making quick decisions based on new information. The instructor, Captain Mark Davidson, was explaining the battle to the class. The human commander knew he was outnumbered, Davidson said, so he did not try to fight a straight battle. Instead, he used the hills and forests to hide his soldiers. He split his army into smaller groups and attacked from different directions at different times. The enemy became confused and made mistakes. Vexthor raised one of his forehands.
"This is interesting," he said.
But why would the larger force not simply spread out and search for the smaller force? They tried to, Davidson explained. But the commander had positioned soldiers to attack them if they moved into the forests. The larger force had better weapons and more soldiers, but the smaller force had better knowledge of the area. Vexthor stood up and walked to the front of the classroom. With his hand, he pointed at the map of the battle. In Krell training, we would have sent our strongest forces directly at the enemy. We would have crushed them. The smaller army would have been destroyed in minutes. Yes, Davidson said carefully. That would probably happen if the armies met in open ground. But in this case, the smaller army avoided open ground. They made the larger army come to them on ground they had chosen. This is why humans survived despite being weak, Vexthor said. He said it without anger or judgment. It was just a statement of fact. You cannot fight through strength, so you fight through thinking, through cleverness. Rachel Sullivan spoke up from her seat. Is cleverness less important in Krell battles? She asked. Vexthor turned to look at her. In the Krell military, cleverness is less valued, he said. We believe that perfect training and perfect execution will always win. We believe that one Krell warrior is worth 10 human warriors, so we do not need to think about other ways of fighting. But what if you meet an enemy that is even stronger? Kevin asked. There is no enemy stronger than the Krell, Vexthor said. But something in his voice suggested he was beginning to wonder if this was completely true. After class ended, Vexthor asked if he could spend time in the Academy's war room. This was a special place where military leaders planned strategies using computers and models of the land. Captain Morrison gave him permission, and Kevin and Rachel were assigned to help him understand how it worked. When they entered the war room, Vexthor looked at all the equipment with great interest. Large screens showed maps and information. There were models of different terrains and cities. There were computers that could run thousands of simulations of battles. This is impressive, Vexthor said. We have similar technology, but your systems seem designed differently. Kevin started showing him how humans used these tools to plan battles. We try many different strategies, Kevin explained. We look at what might go wrong. We prepare for things we do not expect. We also prepare for unexpected things, Vexthor said. But we prepare by training soldiers to handle any situation with perfect technique. We do not run simulations of possible problems. Rachel looked at Kevin. She was thinking the same thing. What if both approaches were useful? What if Krell strength and training combined with human flexibility and imagination could be even more powerful? Can we run a simulation? Vexthor asked suddenly. Of what? Rachel asked. A battle between Krell and human forces, Vexthor said. I want to see what would happen. Captain Morrison was called over. She approved the simulation, and soon Kevin, Rachel, and Vexthor were setting up a scenario. They created a fake battlefield with two armies. One army was Krell soldiers trained in the Krell way. The other army was human soldiers trained in the human way. The simulation began. At first, the Krell soldiers moved forward in perfect formation. They were strong, fast, and well-trained. The human soldiers seemed to be losing, but then the human soldiers started to do unexpected things. They did not fight in a straight line. They divided into smaller groups. They used the terrain. They made fast decisions and changed their plans when things did not work. The Krell soldiers tried to follow their training and their perfect tactics. But the human soldiers kept doing things that the Krell soldiers had not been trained to handle. The humans were more flexible. They could change quickly. The simulation ended in a stalemate. Neither side could win. Vexthor was silent for a long time. He watched the replay of the simulation over and over again. Finally, he spoke. "This is very interesting," he said slowly. "The human soldiers are not better fighters, but they are better at thinking. They solve problems faster. They try new things. The Krell soldiers follow their training perfectly, but their training does not have answers for everything." Kevin felt like he was watching something important happen. Vexthor was beginning to see that the Krell way of training, while very good, had limitations. And the human way of training, while it made soldiers less perfect technically, made them more adaptable. "At the Krell Academy, we are taught that there is one right way to do everything," Vexthor said. His voice was different now. He sounded like he was thinking out loud. "A soldier who tries a new way is seen as weak, but here at this academy, trying new ways is seen as strong. Do you think your way is wrong?" Rachel asked carefully. "I think my way is incomplete," Vexthor said. "It makes perfect soldiers for perfect situations. But war is never perfect. There are always things you did not expect." Over the next few days, Vexthor began to change how he was learning. Instead of just watching and asking questions, he started to participate differently. When cadets were doing training exercises, he would suggest unusual ways of approaching the problems. He would ask cadets to explain why they made certain choices. He also started to share more about himself. He told stories about Krell battles and Krell training. He explained why the Krell believed so strongly in perfection and control. He told them that the Krell government was very strict, and that warriors who did not follow orders exactly were punished severely. "Your military is more free than ours," Vexthor told Kevin one evening. "Your commanders allow soldiers to think and to make choices. In the Krell military, soldiers are told exactly what to do. There is no choice. Do you like it that way?" Kevin asked. Vexthor was quiet. "I have never known anything different," he said finally. "But here, I see that soldiers who can think for themselves are very powerful. I am beginning to wonder if the Krell way is truly the best way." Marcus Hayes was monitoring all of this carefully. He reported everything to General Pierce. Pierce was amazed at how Vexthor was changing. The alien warrior was not just learning about humans. He was beginning to question his own culture's military ways. "This could be a problem," Pierce said to Marcus in his office. "If Vexthor goes back to the Krell Dominion and tells them that their way of training is not perfect, it could change their entire military structure. The Krell government might not like that. Is that a bad thing?" Marcus asked. Pierce thought for a moment.
"I am not sure," he said.
"It could lead to peace between our species. Or it could make the Krell want to prove that they are still superior. We need to be very careful now. Everything depends on what happens next." Marcus left the office thinking about how complex this situation had become. A simple cultural exchange program had turned into something much more important. Vexthor was not just learning about humans. He was beginning to see his own culture differently, and nobody knew if that would help or hurt both species in the future. 3 weeks into his stay, Vexthor made a decision that would change everything. He asked for a private meeting with General Pierce, Captain Morrison, and Commander Marcus Hayes. When they were all in a room together, Vexthor explained something that shocked them. "I was sent here as a spy," Vexthor said directly. "My real mission was to study your military techniques and find weaknesses in your defense systems. I was supposed to report everything back to the Krell government so that they could plan an invasion if necessary." The room became completely silent. General Pierce's face turned red. Captain Morrison looked like she wanted to speak but could not find the words. Marcus felt his heart begin to beat faster. "However," Vexthor continued, "I cannot do this. In the past 3 weeks, I have learned things that have changed how I think about warfare and about my own people. I came here believing that the Krell are superior in every way. I believed that your soldiers were weak and that your military strategies were inferior. I was wrong." General Pierce stood up from his chair. "Are you telling us that the Krell Dominion sent you here to spy on us?" he asked in a voice that was angry and controlled at the same time. "Yes," Vexthor said. "But I am telling you this now because I do not want to lie to you. I do not want to betray the people here who have taught me and been kind to me. Your cadets and your instructors have shown me something that I did not know existed. They have shown me that being a good warrior is about more than just being strong and following orders. Captain Morrison leaned forward. What are you saying, Vexthor? Are you saying you will not complete your mission? That is correct, Vexthor said. I will not spy on your military. I will not report your secrets to the Krell government. Instead, I want to propose something different. I want to tell the Krell government the truth about what I have learned here. Marcus spoke for the first time. What exactly do you want to tell them? He asked. I want to tell them that human soldiers are not weak, Vexthor said. I want to tell them that human military strategy is based on different principles than Krell strategy, and that these principles are effective. I want to tell them that perhaps the Krell way of training is not the only way, perhaps not even the best way. General Pierce sat back down slowly. He was thinking very carefully about what this meant. If Vexthor told the Krell government that human military tactics were effective, it could change the balance of power in the galaxy. It could lead to real peace, or it could make the Krell want to fight even harder to prove their superiority. Why should we believe you? Pierce asked. How do we know this is not just a more clever trick? How do we know you are not trying to gain our trust so that we will tell you our secrets? You do not know, Vexthor said simply. You can only choose to trust me or not trust me. But I have something to show you that might help you decide. Vexthor took out a small device from his pocket. It was a recording device that had been hidden in his uniform the whole time. He explained that the Krell government had given it to him so he could record everything he learned. I have recorded nothing, Vexthor said. I have not used this device at all. If I was still planning to complete my mission, I would be recording all of your military secrets. But I have not done this. I have left it empty and unused. This is my proof. Marcus examined the device. It was true. The memory in it was completely empty. It had never been used to record anything. Over the next hour, Vexthor told them everything. He explained that the Krell Dominion always sent warriors to observe other military academies. He explained that the Krell government wanted to know if any other species in the galaxy were becoming strong enough to be a real threat. He explained that the Krell were constantly preparing for war because they believed that eventually someone would challenge their control of the galaxy. But now I see, Vexthor said, that you do not have to be the strongest to survive. You have to be the most adaptable. You have to be able to learn and change. The Krell are very strong, but we do not like to change. We do not like to adapt. We believe that our way is perfect, but perfect in one situation is not always good in another situation. General Pierce made a difficult decision. He decided to believe Vexthor, but he also decided that what happened next needed to be a test. We will trust you, Pierce said, but we need to prove that you are genuine. We are going to create a military exercise, a test scenario. This will be the most realistic test we have. You will lead one group of our best cadets. They will be trained to fight like Krell soldiers using Krell tactics. Another group of cadets will fight like they normally do, using human tactics. We will see what happens. Vexthor agreed to this plan. He understood that the humans needed proof that he was telling the truth. Over the next week, Vexthor worked with one group of cadets to teach them Krell fighting methods. He taught them to move in perfect formation. He taught them to follow orders exactly without thinking about alternatives. He taught them to rely on strength and power instead of speed and cleverness. Kevin Porter was in the group that would fight using human tactics. He and Rachel and the other cadets practiced their normal way of fighting. They practiced thinking fast and making quick decisions. They practiced working together in flexible ways instead of in rigid formations. The day of the exercise finally came. The entire academy gathered to watch. This was more than just a training exercise. Everyone understood that this was a test of which military approach was better. The exercise area was a large space with hills and buildings and different kinds of terrain. The two groups of cadets were placed on opposite sides. They were given weapons that did not really hurt, but that registered when someone was hit. At first, the Krell-trained cadets seemed to be winning. They moved in perfect order. They were stronger and faster in direct combat. They advanced across the training ground very quickly. But then something started to happen. The human-trained cadets began to use the terrain. They hid in buildings. They split into smaller groups. They attacked from unexpected directions. The Krell-trained cadets did not know how to handle this. Their training had not prepared them for such unpredictability. As the exercise continued, the human-trained cadets became more and more effective. They were losing fewer soldiers because they were not fighting head-to-head. They were using their brains instead of just their strength. By the end of the exercise, the human-trained cadets had won. They had defeated the group that was trained in Krell methods. The academy went silent. Everyone was shocked. The Krell method had lost to the human method. Vexthor watched all of this carefully. He did not look upset or angry. He looked thoughtful. After the exercise ended, Vexthor spoke to the gathered cadets. "Today you have seen something important," he said in his deep voice. "You have seen that strength is not everything. Thinking and flexibility are also very valuable. The Krell have learned to be strong. Humans have learned to think. Perhaps the best warriors are those who can do both." General Pierce watched Vexthor carefully. The alien warrior was not just accepting that human methods were good. He was suggesting that combining both methods might be even better. That night, Pierce called Marcus into his office. "I think we can trust him now," Pierce said. "He has chosen to be honest with us even when it went against his original mission. That takes courage." Marcus nodded, but he was still thinking about what came next. What would the Krell government do when Vexthor returned home and told them what he had learned? Would they want to learn from humans? Or would they see this as a threat and want to attack? No one could answer these questions yet. But one thing was certain. The simple cultural exchange program had become something much more important. The future of peace between humans and Krell might now depend on what Vexthor did next. 4.5 months had passed since Vexthor arrived at Ridgemont Military Academy. The alien warrior was no longer seen as a strange visitor or a possible enemy. He had become an important part of the academy. Many cadets considered him their friend and teacher. Kevin Porter and Rachel Sullivan spent almost every day with him, learning and discussing military strategy and philosophy. But not everyone at the academy was happy with this change. A group of cadets led by a young man named Nathan Cross still did not trust Vexthor. They believed that even if he said he would not spy for the Krell, he was still dangerous. They thought that he was fooling everyone and that the Krell government would eventually attack humanity, using information he had gathered. Nathan gathered his friends and made a plan. He would expose Vexthor as a spy and prove that he was dangerous. Nathan believed that if he could prove this, Vexthor would be sent away and everything would go back to normal. One morning, Nathan went to General Pierce's office. He had made copies of Vexthor's empty recording device and other devices that the Academy had studied. Nathan claimed that these were proof that Vexthor had been spying the whole time. He said that the empty recording device was just a cover story, and that Vexthor had been using other hidden devices to send information back to the Krell Dominion. General Pierce listened to Nathan carefully. He understood that some people at the Academy were still scared and suspicious. But Pierce had been watching Vexthor very carefully, and he did not believe that Nathan's accusations were true. However, Pierce decided that the best way to handle this was to let everyone at the Academy know the truth about the situation. He called an assembly. Every cadet, every instructor, and every staff member was gathered in the main auditorium. Vexthor was there too. General Pierce stood at the front of the auditorium. His voice was calm and strong. "I know that some of you are still worried about Vexthor," he said. "I know that you are not sure if we can trust him. I understand these feelings, so I'm going to tell you the complete truth about why Vexthor is here." Pierce explained everything. He told them that Vexthor had been sent as a spy. He told them that Vexthor could have completed his mission but chose not to. He explained that Vexthor had been honest about his true purpose and that he had chosen to work with the Academy instead of against it. "Some of you may still not trust him," Pierce said. "That is your choice. But I want to give Vexthor a chance to speak to all of you. I want him to tell you himself what he believes and what he wants to do." Vexthor walked to the front of the auditorium. His 4 eyes looked across all the faces of the cadets. He took a moment before he spoke. "I came here as a warrior," Vexthor said. His deep voice filled the entire auditorium. "I came here to study your weaknesses so that my people could defeat you if war came. I believe that the Krell were superior to all other species. I believe that strength and perfect training were all that mattered in warfare." He paused. The room was completely silent. "I was wrong," Vexthor continued. "In the past 4 months, I have learned that there are many ways to be strong. Your species has survived in a galaxy where there are creatures much stronger than you. You have survived because you think differently. You adapt quickly. You are willing to try new things even when you might fail. Nathan Cross stood up. How do we know you are telling the truth? He shouted. How do we know that the Krell government did not send you here to trick us? You do not know, Vexthor said calmly. Just as I cannot know if your government sent people to spy on me. But I will tell you this. When I return to the Krell Dominion, I will tell them what I have learned. I will tell them that humans are not weak. I will tell them that your military strategies are effective. I will tell them that perhaps the Krell should change how we train our warriors. That sounds like a threat, Nathan said. It is not a threat, Vexthor said. It is a fact. The Krell government may not like what I have to say. They may punish me for what I have learned here, but I cannot go back and pretend that I did not learn these things. I cannot pretend that I have not changed. Kevin Porter stood up. He did not shout like Nathan. He spoke calmly and clearly. I believe Vexthor, Kevin said. I have trained with him every day. I have talked with him for hours. I have seen him question everything he was taught. That is not the action of a spy. That is the action of someone who is genuinely trying to understand something new. Rachel Sullivan stood up next to Kevin. I agree, she said. Vexthor has taught me more about military strategy in 4 months than I learned in 3 years of academy training. If he was a spy, he would not waste time teaching us. He would just be gathering information. Other cadets stood up too. One after another, they said that they believed in Vexthor. They said that they had learned from him and that he had shown them a new way of thinking about warfare. Nathan looked around the auditorium. He could see that most of the cadets were now standing with Vexthor. He sat down slowly, his face red with anger and confusion. General Pierce watched all of this carefully. He was satisfied that the truth was coming out. He called for a vote. The question was simple. Should Vexthor be allowed to remain at the academy for the rest of his stay, or should he be sent back to the Krell Dominion immediately? The vote was not unanimous, but it was clear. More than 80% of the academy voted for Vexthor to stay. After the assembly ended, Vexthor found himself surrounded by cadets who wanted to talk with him and thank him. Kevin and Rachel pushed through the crowd to reach him. That was brave, Kevin said. You told them the truth even though you knew some of them would not believe you. What else could I do? Vexthor asked. I cannot lie. I cannot pretend to be something I am not. If they do not believe me, then I must accept that. Over the next few weeks, the academy returned to normal routines. But something had changed. The entire academy now understood that Vexthor was not an enemy. He was a teacher and a friend. He was also a warrior who had made a choice between his duty to the Krell government and his new understanding of what was right. Vexthor spent his remaining time at the academy doing what he loved most. He trained with the cadets. He taught classes about Krell military strategy. He studied human tactics and philosophy, and he spent long hours with Kevin and Rachel, discussing the future and what might come next. One evening, as Vexthor watched the sunset from the top of the academy's main building, Marcus came to stand beside him. You changed this academy, Marcus said. You changed how we think about ourselves as warriors. And you changed me, Vexthor replied. You showed me that there is more than one way to be strong. This knowledge is dangerous for me. When I return home, the Krell government may see me as a threat. But I cannot unknow what I have learned here. I cannot pretend to be who I was before. What will you do? Marcus asked. I will tell the truth, Vexthor said. I will tell my people what I have learned. I will suggest that we change our military training to include more flexibility and more ability to think for ourselves. Some Krell will listen, some will not. But I must try. And if they punish you, Marcus asked, then I will accept that punishment, Vexthor said, because what I have learned here is more valuable than my safety. I have learned that warriors are not just weapons. Warriors are thinking beings who can make choices. Warriors can choose to be better than they were. That is something worth any price. Marcus smiled. He understood now that Vexthor had truly changed. The alien warrior who had arrived at the academy 4 months ago was not the same being standing here now. He had learned something more important than military tactics. He had learned to think for himself. The last day of Vexthor's stay at Ridgemont Military Academy arrived faster than anyone expected. 6 months had passed like a dream. The alien warrior who had come as a potential enemy had become a friend, a teacher, and a bridge between two very different species. Now it was time for him to return to the Krell Dominion. The entire academy gathered on the landing platform to say goodbye. The morning sun was bright and warm. A shuttle had landed, waiting to take Vexthor back to the Krell ships that were orbiting above the planet. Kevin Porter and Rachel Sullivan stood together, watching as Vexthor walked across the platform toward the shuttle. General Pierce was the first to shake his hand. "You have changed this academy forever," Pierce said. "You have shown us that we can learn from our differences instead of fearing them." "And you have changed me," Vexthor replied. "Thank you for giving me the chance to learn and to grow beyond what I was taught to be." Kevin stepped forward next. "What will happen when you get back?" he asked. "Do you think the Krell government will believe you?" "I do not know," Vexthor said honestly. "The Krell leadership has believed for thousands of years that we are superior to all other species. Telling them that humans have developed effective military strategies that we should learn from will be very difficult. Some may see me as a traitor, but I must tell them the truth." Rachel was crying, though she tried to hide it. Vexthor reached out with one of his 4 hands and gently touched her shoulder. "You have taught me that knowledge is more valuable than obedience," he said. "You have taught me that real strength comes from the ability to adapt and to think. I will take these lessons with me." Marcus Hayes was standing with General Pierce. He was thinking about everything that had happened in the past 6 months. An alien warrior had arrived at their military academy with a secret mission to spy on them, but instead of becoming an enemy, he had become someone who helped humanity understand itself better. "Do you think he will be okay?" Marcus asked Pierce quietly. "I hope so," Pierce said. "But we must prepare for the possibility that the Krell government will not accept what he has learned here. They may see this as a threat to their power. We need to be ready for anything." Vexthor walked toward the shuttle. Before he entered, he turned back and looked at all the cadets one more time. His 4 eyes scanned across their faces. He was taking mental pictures of this place and these people, who had become so important to him. "One final thing," Vexthor said, his deep voice carrying across the platform. "I want you to remember that I came here believing that war was the only way to settle disputes between species. I came here as a weapon, but I am leaving as someone who believes that understanding and learning from each other is possible, even between species that seem very different. This is what you have taught me. This is what I will teach the Krell. Do not lose hope. Change is possible, even in the places where it seems most impossible." He entered the shuttle and the door closed behind him. The cadets watched as the shuttle rose into the sky. Within minutes, it had disappeared into the clouds and then into space. Vexthor was gone. But he was not forgotten. Everything in the academy had been changed by his presence. The training methods were different now. Instructors began to encourage cadets to think more creatively, instead of just following rules exactly. Combat training included lessons about adapting to unexpected situations instead of relying only on strength and technique. 2 weeks after Vexthor left, the Academy received a message through the diplomatic channels. It was a recorded message from Vexthor himself, sent from the Krell Dominion. General Pierce called together his senior staff to watch the message. Kevin and Rachel were invited to listen as well. When the recording started, they saw Vexthor in what looked like an official Krell government building. He looked different. He looked like he was standing in front of powerful people who were judging him. "I have presented my findings to the High Council of the Krell Dominion," Vexthor said in the recording. "I have told them what I learned at Ridgemont Military Academy. I have told them that human warriors are not weak. I have told them that human military strategy is effective and that we have things to learn from humans." Vexthor paused. He looked tired, like he had been through something very difficult. "The High Council was not pleased with my report," Vexthor continued. "Many Krell leaders said that I had been influenced by the humans and that I was no longer thinking clearly. They said that my mission was a failure because I did not gather the military secrets that I was supposed to find." There was another pause. General Pierce leaned forward, wondering what would come next. "But then something unexpected happened," Vexthor said. "A younger group of Krell leaders, warriors who were interested in new ideas, began to ask me questions. They wanted to know more about human tactics. They wanted to understand why human soldiers could be effective even though they were weaker. They became interested in the idea that perhaps the Krell military could learn from humans." Kevin felt hope rising in his chest. Maybe Vexthor was going to be okay after all. "I have been given permission to establish a new program. Vexthor said. A program that will study human military tactics and human philosophy. The High Council has decided that it might be useful to understand our potential enemies better. They do not yet believe that we should change our military training, but they are willing to learn. Vexthor's expression became more serious. I do not know if this will lead to real peace between our species. I do not know if the Krell will eventually accept that change is necessary, but I know that I have done what was right. I have been honest about what I learned, and I have kept the friendships and the knowledge that was given to me. The recording ended. Everyone in the room was quiet for a moment. This is good news, General Pierce said slowly. It is not perfect, but it is much better than I expected. Vexthor has survived and he has managed to create interest in learning from us. That is a major step, Rachel spoke up. Do you think the Krell will eventually send more warriors to study with us? I think it is possible, Pierce said. If this program works, if younger Krell leaders become interested in human tactics, then we might see a real change in how the Krell view other species. Over the following months, more messages came from Vexthor. He continued to teach Krell warriors about human military strategy. Slowly, more and more Krell leaders became interested in what humans had to offer. The idea of a full military exchange program began to seem possible. Kevin Porter was appointed as the official liaison between the human military and the Krell military. Rachel Sullivan began writing papers about combining human and Krell military tactics. They had found their life's work because of a single alien warrior who had come to their academy and changed everything. 1 year after Vexthor left, there was another announcement. The Krell Dominion and the United Earth Coalition had agreed to establish permanent military exchange programs. Warriors from both species would study at each other's academies. Knowledge would be shared. Understanding would be built. Marcus Hayes was sitting in his office when he heard the news. He thought about the day Vexthor had arrived when everyone was so afraid. He thought about how much had changed in just 1 year. One alien warrior had shown humanity that change was possible. He had shown them that even beings who seemed very different could find common ground and become friends. The future still held many challenges and many unknowns. There would still be people on both sides who did not trust each other. But something fundamental had changed. Two species had learned that understanding was possible. That learning was possible. That being different did not mean being enemies. Vexthor had come to Ridgemont Military Academy as a spy and a potential threat. But he had left as something much more important. He had left as a bridge between two worlds. And that bridge, once built, could never be completely destroyed. No matter what happened in the future, humans and Krell would always know that it was possible to learn from each other. And that made all the difference in a galaxy that had known so much conflict and so little understanding.